So let me ask you a question. What are you going to pass down to the next generation? For centuries, the answer was pretty simple, right? It was gold, maybe some land, family jewels. But what does a family heirloom even look like in the digital age? Well, it might just start with a story and, believe it or not, a crumpled up napkin. Okay, just picture this. Your grandma, she's got that little twinkle in her eye, and she pulls you aside. She says she's ready to pass on the family's most treasured possession. So she reaches into her pocket and pulls out a single crumpled napkin. And on it, there's a message.
Just a few words scribbled in some shaky cursive. 1 BTC equals 1 BTC. She leans in and whispers, "This recipe, it's been in our family for 16 years. Now, whatever you do, never sell the main ingredient." You kind of look at her confused and ask what it's for. She just smiles and says, "Patience stew. You just simmer it until your grandkids retire." So what on earth does any of that mean?
To really get what Grandma's talking about, we have to look at this so-called main ingredient. Because, this isn't just a funny little story. It's the entire philosophy of a monetary system all packed into one simple-looking equation.
See, this phrase, 1 BTC equals 1 BTC, it's not about its price in dollars or anything like that. It's a statement about what it is. It means 1 Bitcoin is always and will always be 1/21 millionth of the total supply. It's basically a declaration that its fundamental nature, the code itself, doesn't change. Ever.
Now, think about that compared to traditional money, right? Where governments can just decide to print more, which can and often does dilute the value of the money you've saved. But with Bitcoin, the rules are literally set in stone, or, well, in code. Nobody can just create more out of thin air. It's built to be this consistent thing inside its own system, totally resistant to that kind of inflation.
And here is the magic number. This is why. There is an absolute, non-negotiable, hard cap. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever be created. Period. End of story. That absolute finality, that mathematical scarcity, that is what makes it so different. This is Grandma's unchanging ingredient.
And that fixed supply, well, that's what makes it possible for it to become this whole new kind of heirloom. The crumpled napkin. It was never about a recipe for soup. It's about passing down a way of thinking, a recipe for a mindset about the future.
Or, to put it another way, Grandma isn't giving you soup, she's giving you sovereignty. By handing you an asset that you, and only you, control without needing a bank or any other middleman, she's giving you a tool for your own financial independence. You own it, outright.
Let's just break that down a bit. Traditional heirlooms like land or gold are physical things. They're scarce, sure, but only relatively. We can always find and mine more gold. And passing them on means lawyers, wills, a whole legal process. A digital heirloom, like Bitcoin, totally different. Its scarcity is absolute. It's guaranteed by math. And inheriting it isn't about paperwork. It's about passing down knowledge, the private keys that give you access.
Okay, so if you're going to treat this thing like a digital family heirloom, how do you actually protect it? How do you make sure you're preserving it for the next generation? How do you follow Grandma's advice? Well, that brings us back to the recipe for patience stew. The steps are actually pretty simple, but they're incredibly important. First, you store the main ingredient offline, away from hackers. Second, you keep it somewhere safe and secret. Third, you never share the full details, your private keys, with anyone. And finally, here's the hardest part, you just let it simmer. This is all about patience and having a really, really long-term perspective.
And there's one more ingredient, and it might just be the most important one of all. The real inheritance isn't just about handing over a digital file. It's about teaching the next generation how this stuff actually works. So instead of just teaching them how to bake cookies, maybe teach them how to verify the blockchain. You have to pass down the understanding. Because honestly, without the knowledge, the asset itself is kind of meaningless.
All of this really brings us to a final, more personal thought. We're watching the very idea of what an heirloom is. We're watching it change right in front of us, shifting from something you can hold in your hand to something that's purely digital.
I mean, think about the history in your own family. Maybe your great-grandparents really valued gold, that tangible store of value they could trust. Then maybe your grandparents saw land as the ultimate way to secure the family's future. And now here we are, standing at a totally new point on this timeline.
So it really leaves us with a big question to think about. If the very definition of what has lasting value changes from one generation to the next, what's going to be the heirloom that you choose to preserve, to protect, and to pass on?